If you're big and everything's going really well and everybody needs you and you're making money, that's usually the time to change. But it's also the time where you feel like, no, I don't need to change. So there's no urgency. Change is a constant. It's just that don't approach it as a sort of a thing that has a beginning and an end. It is the way it is forever. You're going to do this forever. So there's no end to it because there's
like water.
Yeah, be like water. Yeah, exactly. Be like water.
Welcome to Beyond Billable, Driving Conversations. I am Pim Betist, founder of Clay Richard, legal AI consultants. Each episode, I get behind the wheel of a fully electric Neo with a thought leader from the legal world. You will hear practical ideas you can apply this week, clear views on business model adaptations, and honest stories from teams that are already working differently. In this episode, I had the opportunity to discuss change management in the legal sector with no one other than Arne van Oosterom. Arne has worked with a broad spectrum of clients, including startups, governments, and industry titans. His mission is to inspire, educate, and build connections by challenging traditional thought patterns and paving the way for a brighter, more innovative future. During the episode, you'll learn how Arne breaks down the myths around transformation and shares how law firms can adapt before disruption forces their hand. I hope you enjoy this driving conversation with Arne van Oosterom. Can we start by you explaining your background and experience?
I can. So I'll try to keep it short. So I have a very diverse background. I'm in essence I'm a generalist, and I'm curious about anything and everything, and I love learning. But my passion really is creativity and coming up with new things and helping people and creating space for people to come up with new things and be creative thinkers and innovators. And that's been my passion for the last at least 20 years. 2006, I started DesignThinkers Group and DesignThinkers Academy. Before that, I did many other things, but that's, I think, the most relevant thing I can mention. It was at a time that there was a lot of change happening in business. Social media was kind of entering the sort of the space, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, Facebook, all these things that was really confusing, specifically around marketing and stuff like that. And then in 2008 we had the financial crisis, so it was a really big time of change, and companies wanted to do things differently. Design thinking became sort of for me, a mindset that I was really interested in. And in 2019, I sold my shares to the company and I founded Future Skills Academy because I think there was another change happening, and I wanted to focus more on skills. Know that, but in general, I have a background as a designer and a creative, but also as an entrepreneur.
So, if I can summarize, you help companies with the adaptation to change in their environment.
Yeah. So, and specifically through helping them to be more creative, helping teams and people to create a culture of creativity, because obviously right now with AI, there's clearly a need for change, or at least we have to adopt to a changing market, changing technology, changing opportunities.
Maybe we should take a step back and talk a little bit about change. AI is obviously changing the whole way that we deliver work in the legal sector. So companies, firms, legal departments are going to have to change. Can you give some examples of companies that were not able to adapt to their new reality?
So I think There's so many examples. If you start looking into this, it's amazing. But just there's some very famous companies like Kodak, for instance, and Blockbusters, and Nokia, BlackBerry. I remember BlackBerry. Remember that BlackBerry came out.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to have a BlackBerry because you could do email on your phone. It was amazing, right? And how come these companies failed? Where did they go? This idea that you are an established company and you have a big market share that kind of secures you from disappearing. That's really not true. Actually, the bigger you are, the more dangerous it is for you, I think. So the legal sector, I think it already is being challenged, obviously, but I'm not sure if they're aware of it. I'm not sure, because if you're big and everything is going really well and everybody needs you and you're making money, that's usually the time to change, but it's also the time where you feel like, no, I don't need to change, so there's no urgency. And this is what went wrong with companies like Kodak and also Nokia. They were so big. Everybody had a Nokia. Years ago, when I asked people to raise their hand, who had a Nokia, people would all raise their hand. A year later, nobody did, because everybody had an iPhone. Right? And so that's happening in all industries. Like in the consultancy industry, it's happening, but also in legal. There are challengers, and they are usually not the ones you expect the most. I was just reading about Amazon. That might be a challenger that's going to kind of provide some legal services, and they're testing it out. They're not big into depth, but that's an interesting thing.
If I would boil it down to signals or signs, one sign is that the company is making a lot of money. It's being very successful. The second is that there is a transformation taking place technologically in the way service can be provided. And then maybe third, internally are some signs that, because there are companies that were able to adapt and that still exist, and there are companies that do not. So what are the signals inside the companies that were not able to adapt?
Not listening is one thing. So at Nokia, for instance, there was actually from one of the senior leaders within Nokia, he wrote a letter to everyone. It was called the Burning Platform, where he talks about that they were in the Burning Platform and they had to choose to either join one of the platforms like the Apple or the Google platform, or they would just disappear because they were trying to create their own, and they just didn't accept it. They just didn't want to. They knew this. Kodak as well. They were actually the first company to develop digital photography. They were ahead of the competition, but it was too difficult to change because it meant that they had to probably become their own competitor. So becoming your own competitor, that feeling of like, but then we're going to compete with our factories in the case of Kodak film, right? So, and that change is just too big for them.
This is literally what I got back. I was in a call with like 20 firms, and we talked about the change that is necessary, and their response was that there was like the change that is necessary is so drastic that it feels like panicking, that it feels like too much. And so let's talk about that, because the word transformation is being used a lot about what's happening with technology, and logically we expect firms to also transform. What does it mean for a firm and for a legal department to transform?
It always starts with people. It always starts with mindset, culture, and behavior. Culture and behavior, to me, they're the same thing. How do you behave in your organization? So are you able to change? Are you having honest conversations? Do you listen to each other? Are you able to listen to your customers, listen to what's happening in the industry, market, technology, and are you then able to do some experimentation within the organization? First of all, the word transformation and change is something that is also interesting to think about, because the way we present and communicate about transformation and transitions and reorganizations and all those things, I think there's always been a bit of a mistake there. First of all, we think people don't like change, but I disagree. I think we change all the time, but we don't like uncertainty. So if you don't know why a company needs to change, or you feel you don't have a control over, you don't know what the result is going to be for you personally, then you're going to kind of be an obstacle because you don't want because you don't know what's going to happen. You want to have a certain feeling of control.
So people like change, they don't like the uncertainty that comes with it.
Yeah, they don't like it if there's no trust. So if they don't trust what's going on, then there's a problem. One of my first jobs, I worked as a communication advisor for KPN, and I was part of the organization that was responsible for putting the cables in the ground. That company was the way they communicated it was that the company was going to be an independent company. So they would kind of disconnect from KPN and become their own limited company. Everybody knew that was a lie. Everybody knew it was going to be sold to another company and it wasn't going to be independent at all. But because of, the price that they could ask for that department of that piece of the company, to keep that as high as possible, they had to pretend that it was a viable option to become a successful independent company. And so I remember that the CEO, the director of this company, was there was a big meeting and he was talking about, becoming a successful independent organization, and everybody knew it was a lie. That is really a bad situation for people then. And then to ask people to become creative and entrepreneurial, when you go there's just it's just a typical thing of something I learned when I was in communications. And every change starts with honesty, and even if it's bad news. I mean, that's I think the first step. And then start small. Don't change everything at the same time because you don't know. Nobody knows how to do it successfully. So and this is the same in every industry. Every industry thinks they're special. Every company thinks they're different and special, but they're all relatively the same. The context might be different, but it's still people and emotions. And I think if you want to change anything, you have to start small, show that it works, make people feel comfortable with it. And I would say we always talk about soft spots in an organization. So look at, in your organization, where are things already happening? Maybe there's a team that is already kind of more creative or innovative or more willing to change. Or where is there like something that is very safe? You can fail. It's okay. Let's start there. Start in these soft spots. And then
So if I look at the legal industry, there's the activities that are billable, and then there's activities that are non-billable. Then probably it would be good to look at the non-billable stuff first because that has less impact on the business model. Is that a way to look at it?
That could be a really good approach. Or maybe you have a client organization that is also, because the customers are also struggling with the same thing. Maybe they are willing to experiment with you. Maybe that's a nice approach. So from a design thinking sort of approach, the way I usually work with clients is that I work with them on these things. And because my clients I work for usually are also trying to innovate and change, and if I want to do something that is new for me, sometimes it's really nice to do with your customers. And again, it makes me vulnerable because it tells them I don't know what I'm doing because it's the first time for me as well. But it's true. And so one of the big problems we see now with AI is that there are lots of experts all of a sudden, where I don't know where they all came from. But I mean, the day after ChatGPT was launched, LinkedIn was full of AI experts. But how do you know? How do you know who's a real expert? I would trust. If I work with a company, if I call them a supplier or whatever partner, and if they are honest with me and they say, listen, this is new for us as well, let's learn together. I like that. If I work with a company that says I'm an expert, and I go
don't trust the experts, become the expert yourself by basically doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and working with real cases, real people.
Yeah, experiment and do some do sessions with your customers. Learn together.
Do you have any advice? Because that also sounds a little bit risky. If you start doing something immediately with your client because it's client facing, things could go wrong with generative AI. Do you have any tips for guardrails, how to set up such a project?
Yeah, these can be prototypes or pilots or experimentations, and there's been a time that a lot of companies started these innovation labs, for instance. You could create something of a sort of a laboratory kind of environment. The language around that sounds like, oh no, we're in a lab. We're testing. So create a create language around it so it feels safe. It feels okay. This is where we learn. This is how we're going to make some mistakes. We're going to learn from these mistakes. So that's an approach. And of course, look for the right customer, the right client to do this with.
I get the idea of starting with small projects, but I'm also a little bit critical about this approach because sometimes the small projects are not enough. Things are moving really rapidly. And if you take really small steps, then you might miss the boat.
Yeah, there might be that feeling that it's too slow. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. I understand the fear, but then the option would be to go and do lots of big projects and fail big. I wouldn't be worried about that at all. Sometimes it feels like things are going really fast, and when you do small projects, that sounds very slow. But it's so there's a saying in innovation, like you have to slow down to really change fast.
Yeah.
Right.
What is it again from Modern Family? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Yeah, because if you move fast but you don't know where you're going, again the open water metaphor. If you're moving fast, you don't know where you're going. So see those small projects as this one way or as a strategy basically of learning, of say, okay, when you feel you're in a race, right? You might think, oh, I have to go as fast as possible, as quick, but if the race is a marathon, you might want to go and take it easy a little bit in the beginning. We're not in a sprint. It's going to be a marathon. We're at the start of something. We're not at the end of it. It's not like, oh, now everybody has to use the AI that we know now, generative AI that we know now. Next year it's going to be different again. So create a learning environment. That's the key, learning. So, and yeah, if you could change your culture tomorrow and we have a very linear thinking culture and we have a culture of fear and distrust, let's change that now. And tomorrow it's done. Yeah, go do it. Go. Good luck. Yay. I would do it, but you can't.
Impossible.
It's impossible.
Okay.
So even that acknowledging that is impossible. So what do you need to do? So there's no other way than take small steps. But take those steps because that might sound slow, but are you doing them? Have you been doing them in a strategic way, in a conscious and explicit way to change your organization? Is it a strategy that you develop for change? Do you have that? Do you actually know what a strategy is, to be quite honest? Because there's a lot of misunderstanding there. Does it fit with your vision of the future? Do you have a clear vision of the future you can explain to the people that work with you? That they understand why you're doing these things? Do they align with your vision? People say, why are we doing this? You can say, well, this is our vision, this is our strategy, this is why we do it. And people say, get it, yeah, understand. All right, so we get it. Do you have those in place? I think not.
And where do you start with such a program? Is it all the way at the top, at the bottom, or both? How does that work?
Well, I've been working in change for the last 20 years. In design thinking, there's been, and in service design, and those were movements that felt, and we wanted them to be grassroots, from the bottom up. I'm not sure if that's enough. I don't see the results from that bottom-up approach as much as I've seen them from top-down. So ideally it would be both. But I think that real change needs to happen from top-down because it needs support. Because we work in environments where there's a lot of hierarchy and you can't just kind of wish them away. It's just not, the reality is you need top-down support.
Yeah, all the questions that you were asking just now with the vision and the strategy and all these things, they need to come from the top.
Yes.
And then once that is in place, the people from the bottom should get the resources and the time they need to do the tinkering and the experimenting. Yes. In collaboration with the top for things to actually change.
Yeah, and it should be clear that it's understood. A lot of companies have switched to sort of an agile model, but they really haven't. They go through the motions a little bit. For instance, we're working with a large bank. They are agile, paper, but except then if you go to more senior levels, senior management, they don't work agile. That doesn't work. then there's still hierarchy. So agile in a sense.
Yeah, you have to explain that.
Well,
because agile basically means being able to change quickly or to adapt quickly. But what is agile? Is that like sprint methodology, or what does it mean?
It's actually, so without all the jargon that belongs to it, I would say you have independent teams in your organization that are equipped to do all kinds of things. So you have diverse teams in your organization that are completely free to do the things they need to do, develop the products they need to provide or produce or the improvements or what have you. So you have these teams in your company that are sort of, they have all the freedom to make decisions and choices.
Kind of like what I described just now. So the vision is clear from the top, and then those teams have like independence and autonomy to actually do things.
Yeah, except that they really do have to have it then, instead of they don't really have it.
Okay, and what you were saying is that so they basically give the name. Okay, you're the innovation team.
Yeah.
But then they don't have the autonomy to actually innovate.
No.
And that happens a lot.
Yes.
Okay.
Scary. And because companies are not customer driven but shareholder driven.
Right. Yeah.
They care about their shareholders. So the top is worried about shareholders. And so that's a completely different kind of energy, if you will. And so you can say you want to be customer first, but you're really shareholder first. And that creates tension. So, and you know, and there's really nothing wrong about it up to a point that you pretend to be customer centric and you're really not, because if that makes sort of you do certain things and that shapes your strategy and decision making, you can explain it to people. People are not stupid, people are smart, they know that anyway, right? That's again the problem of not being truthful or not being honest, because they know this. So for instance, you have, suppose you're a bank, and you know, banks have been saying that they are investing in sustainability and all that and stuff, you know, and you know, okay, and to be honest, I don't think anybody will believe them. And then there might be a bank that says, no, we're all about making money. That's all we do. We're about making money for us and for you. Come to us. Hey, right? Clear, fine. I understand. I might go like, that's terrible, but fine. That's not my bank, right? So maybe it's a private investment bank, right? I want my private investment bank to be all about money, right? And don't pretend to be something else. So you know, I have a background in communication design and advertisement as well before I started DesignThinkers, and that nonsense that drove me away, because I was like, what am I part of? You know, if you buy this washing detergent, you become really happy. Really? Are you? No, you're not. We know it's not true. So there's a big opportunity for trust as a sort of a way of connecting to customers and your employees. Because how do you keep your talent in? We're going to compete all these times, especially also not especially in legal, but in all industries. But you're going to compete on talent more and more, right? Who are those talents? How do you keep them in? How do they stay with you? So that is the question of, okay, so how do I create that environment of trust that I can be, you know, the best version of myself within this company? Because that's what you want as a company, right? Because you pay people. I mean, it's a knowledge economy, right? Not just in the legal world, but in most sectors in Europe, we have knowledge. We are workers, and knowledge workers, you pay them for their brain, for their cleverness, for the things they know, and then they're afraid to share what they think. What are you paying them for, right? If you pay someone to do a specific task and they're afraid to do it really well, because they're afraid, like, I'm not going to do my best because this might insult my boss, there's a problem, right? Because that's what you're paying them for. So you pay them for their brain. So create an environment, and I think this takes new leadership. We talk about the hierarchy and management and top-down support, but it needs change in leadership, and it needs a leadership that is, you know, there's a leadership style already from the 70s. It's called the servant leadership. It's basically flipping the pyramid, saying, you as a leader, as a manager, as a boss, as a CEO, you are responsible for creating the environment for people so they can do the things they can do.
So you as a leader serve the employees instead of them serving you.
Exactly. So your question to them in your annual whatever conversation you have with them is, have I done my best? Did I create that environment? What were you planning to do this year? And did I create that environment for you so you could do it? And if not, what can I do to help you do it?
We talked a little bit about failure. I want to double click on that one more time because you gave this, in our prep talk, you told me this anecdote about someone sending out an email to the wrong people or something.
Yeah. Okay, that's the story of in Amsterdam. There was someone made a big mistake. This person sent out an email to everyone in Amsterdam, and it was the wrong email. It was bad, and it was about taxes, and so everybody's really upset. That person got fired straight away. Like, go away. Okay, so someone else got hired, and just imagine, the next time that email is going to be sent out, whatever manager or boss of that department is going to be so nervous and is going to look over the shoulder of that person. Are you clicking on it? Do you have the right, people to send this email to? Wherein, it would be so much more logical that you kept the person, because if there's one person on the planet that will never, ever, ever make that mistake again, it's the person you just fired. Right? Unless there were other things that I don't know of, but I don't think so. But just as a sort of a way of thinking about it, a way of thinking about making mistakes, right? That if you don't learn from your mistakes, there's a problem.
Yeah, there's a whole mechanism, a feedback loop taking place naturally because of pain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So he or she will not do that again.
No.
Yeah,
he or she will go and ask other people, I'm going to do this again. Can you please double check this for me? Because I've made this mistake once, right?
Let's talk about the prerequisites for successful change management, design thinking. We've talked about it a lot, and I'd like to try and make a summary, and then you can add the things that I'm missing. So the first thing is, the whole thing about transition is a fantasy, because transition is way too big of a word. It's small changes, and those small changes happen every day, and they accumulate to a big change over time. So that's the first one. The second one is that problems with culture cause fear for failure, and if you don't allow people to fail, then you're never going to innovate. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. And then third is being completely honest. Whether your strategy is to not implement AI, or, if you want to do that, if you want to stick your head in the sand, or choose to wait, or, whatever your strategy is, be very, very bluntly honest about it, because honesty is the currency that will keep the employees talking and enable you to actually change when you need to.
Yeah.
Is that a good summary of what we discussed?
Adding maybe to your first point that transition change is a constant. It's just that don't approach it as a sort of a thing that has a beginning and an end. It is the way it is forever. You're going to do this forever. So there's no end to it. Don't put like, okay, we're going to transition and then next year, June, we're done. No, you're not done.
Be like water.
Yeah, be like water. Yeah, exactly. Be like water. So I think that's really important, I think. And then I would say trust is the currency.
Trust is a result of honesty, so trust is the currency. Yeah. Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to add? No, I think it's such a big topic, especially in a world that is has been quite comfortable for a long time, like in many industries. So it is an exciting time. So I wouldn't approach it with fear. I wouldn't approach it with being anxious about this. I would approach it with excitement and curiosity, simply because there's going to be so many opportunities, and especially if you're young, and there's a whole world of opportunities opening up for you. Everything is new, which is great. So I would approach that and not be afraid of, in this case, AI, technology in general. Whatever comes at us, be curious. Be curious. Don't go like, oh no, go like, that's interesting. I'd like to learn more. That'd be my approach. Thank you so much for this conversation. This was
my pleasure.
Very, very helpful and fun.
Yeah, too. Nice, interesting to do this in the car. That's really
yeah, it's cool, right?
Good car.
It's a good car.
Yeah.
It's a good car.
Yeah, talk about disruption. I mean, come on. We're sitting right in it.
Thank you for listening to Beyond Billable, Driving Conversations. This podcast is a collaboration with Neo. If you found this episode meaningful, please subscribe or leave us a review. And if you have any questions about this episode, feel free to reach out via hello@clayrichard.eu.